Today we're talking Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, food in Charlotte, and County Commissioner Harold Cogdell. I'm Carlton Hargrove, and this is 282. Thanks, folks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of 282. This is actually our second episode. I hope you tuned in last time for our first one. Like the first one, we are still in beta mode, so we're trying to get better. So it's like better in beta. It's a joke I thought of. Anyway, so if you have any comments on how we can improve on this concept, please send it to us via Twitter at 282TV. That's Twitter at 282TV. So let's just get right into the show. I want to introduce everybody. We have a great panel of folks. Let me start down at the end with Julie Sheffer, and she's the Director of Programs with MEC-Ed. We've got Matthew Vincent, who is the Marketing Manager for Hawthorne's Restaurant Group. Mm-hmm. And we have Mary C. Curtis, who is actually a writer for the Washington Post and does a segment on Fox News Charlotte here, and it's called Keeping It Positive.
Yeah, we try.
Well, you don't have to keep it positive today, Mary.
Okay.
It could be a little negative. It could be a little negative. Speaking of negativity and positivity, let's just jump right into the conversation. So I have a question that I want to ask just right off the bat. It's like, will the real CMS please stand up, okay? And I asked that question because Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, last week, they received another big recognition. They were actually recognized this time for leading other big cities in the nation for reading and math test scores, okay? That comes right on the heels of them winning a big accolade in September for being one of the top urban schools in the country. That's really great news, right? However, there's a lot of bad stuff about CMS that we hear all the time. School layoffs, school closings, violence in schools, and resegregation along racial lines of schools now. So the question is, like I asked before, will the real CMS please stand up? Mary, let me start with Julie. I want to ask you, can CMS be a top-notch school system and be a troubled school system at the same time?
Well, actually, there are pockets of success within a lot of urban districts across the country. Okay. Though, unfortunately, there isn't one urban district that has it all figured out and has been able to spread that success in a sustainable way system-wide. But nationally, a lot of folks look at a small handful of districts, CMS being one of them, as one of those that has made significant progress. Okay. So not that, they've reached the pinnacle, they're doing everything right, but they have achieved significant gains. Okay. And this nation's report card that you mentioned, the NAEP, CMS did rank consistently at the top or in second place across all of the testing categories, which is impressive. So if you're looking at the data, CMS is outperforming peer urban districts across the country. Mm-hmm. Those CMS staff themselves will tell you, while we're pleased with the progress, we are by no means content where we are. Right. That all of us, parents, students, teachers, staff, community members, need to continue to push ourselves to raise the bar to achieve at these higher standards district-wide.
Well, let me ask you, Mary. You actually had a child who's not a child anymore in CMS, right?
He'll always be my child.
Okay,
but yes,
all right. Well, so what are your thoughts about CMS?
Well, I think, as Julie said, both of these things are true. Mm-hmm. That CMS, if you look and compare it to other urban school districts, it's doing pretty well. But you're looking at some other urban school districts that aren't doing very well at all. Oh, I see. But at the same time, people aren't satisfied because too many of our students are still below on math and reading. Right. And so it's like, we're the best, but of what? Also, you see within the district, there is an achievement gap between high-income and low-income students. And I think there's a feeling that unless the district and CMS schools are serving all its students and graduating all its students and preparing them for a global economy, then they can't truly be thought of as totally successful. Right. And so you see a lot of nonprofits and a lot of foundations and a lot of individuals coming in to try to address that, like Project Lift, trying to address the West Charlotte, some of the achievement gap, like Freedom Schools that tries to address the gap that happens between the summer and the fall, and MEC-Ed and other folks who are trying to do some interesting things. Because yes, it's doing very well, but what good is an award if you have kids that aren't graduating, that are dropping out?
Right.
So I think that you have to...
Matthew, let me get you in the conversation. What do you think?
When it comes to CMS, I mean, like anybody that has a child in any school system around the country, it's the most urgent thing that you have to deal with as a parent is the education of your child. But once that education is done, at least as far as K through 12, you're not necessarily an advocate to improve the public education system anymore.
Right.
Some people are, but some people it's on to other things, dealing with family life or personal whatever. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I understand how nationally on a metric, we look good on paper, but I also understand frustrations with parents locally that they want their children to be as smart as possible and get into good schools.
Now, Julie, I want to address, this story was written about in the Charlotte Observer, what we're talking about right now, last week. And the subhead for the piece actually talked about how poor and minority students, like you talked about a little bit, continue to, be behind the curve. I always kind of wonder, why is that? Why is there any way that we can close this gap for poor and minority students?
Well, we have to, right?
Right.
That's why we should all have a sense of urgency, whether you have...
But how do you do it, though? That's the question, right?
Well, CMS has some proven strategies. Strategic Staffing Initiative is one example, and research has really caught up to what parents have always known intuitively, that the teacher is the most important school-based factor for student outcomes. And so CMS is responding to that by placing some high-performing teachers led by a high-performing school leader principal in some of our highest need schools. And really this inequitable distribution of highly effective teachers is what we need to address in all of our low-performing schools in order to help those students achieve at high levels.
Now, we actually were having a conversation about this between the 282 producers last week, and we talked about just how much strain I wouldn't say a broken home, but a troubled home and lack of money and things like that can put on a kid when he's coming to school. And how can you really divorce yourself from a troubled home life in a bad neighborhood and then just wipe all that off and do great in school? How do you do that as a student?
Well, you really can't. If you're worried about food and shelter and safety and things like that, of course it's difficult to concentrate on school, which is why a lot of these programs are doing a lot of things, and why some of the parents feel frustrated that, here in a time of a tough economy where we need to be putting more resources into dealing with these issues and giving kids the best shot, you have some cutbacks and teacher layoffs. And in our district, of course, you have the superintendent leaving, and so you have this whole new turmoil around who's going to be the new superintendent. Should it be someone from outside with all these ideas? Should it be someone from Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system? So I do think, that is something that folks have to think about, because, all those kids deserve a shot. And, who knows, the next great cure could be coming from a child who has a lot of troubles, and we will never know because we're not giving them the tools to reach their true potential. So I think that's why you see a lot of involvement now of people who really want to know, what is the school board going to do? Who are they going to hire? And how are they going to be committed to every child in the district?
What should we be looking for in the next superintendent? What do you think?
Another superintendent, it's a position of power, Do
you think Gorman did a good job?
I don't have
before he bounced.
I don't have any children in the system. I have a younger sister that's in public schools.
Okay.
She's doing a great job. I know he takes a lot of heat, and he should take a lot of heat. There should be a lot of attention on him, but he did a share of spending, as someone has to do in that. But he also did his share of managing a huge system.
Right. Now, what role does MECED play in fixing all this kind of stuff?
Well, at MECED, our mission is to inform and engage and educate the public about public education issues.
Okay.
So we feel that leadership, like the superintendent, like our school leaders, principals, and like our school board, is critically important to ensure that the whole system is high performing, and that will then trickle down to all students, particularly those high need students, making learning gains.
Okay.
And so we look to kind of mobilize that leadership, rally resources for the district and to encourage the community to support our public schools. We're not a mouthpiece for the district. We are a nonpartisan, independent nonprofit, but we feel that it is critically important that all of our community members see that having strong schools across CMS in every zip code is in the best interest of every citizen in Mecklenburg County.
And my last question is kind of a big question. It's kind of a big idea question about schools, but when I was a student, it didn't seem like it was that difficult. I mean, I went to school in a pretty rough city, Gary, Indiana. You know, it's a pretty awful place. And I just don't know what is so difficult about teaching kids. I mean, I'm not trying to down it or make it seem like simpler than it is, but what is so difficult today as opposed to when I was a kid? And there was still a lot of violence and, you know, one-parent homes and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, what's so difficult about it today?
Well, I do think...
Not that you're a teacher, but I mean, what do you think?
Well, I do think when you're a teacher, you are dealing, and I have, my niece and her husband are both teachers, and we talk about this all the time, and you have people coming in, you know, with a lot of problems, and the world in a way is more complicated. There's so many more distractions and things like that, you know, just to get the kids to put things down in the class. And also I do think sometimes that maybe not everyone is totally committed to the idea of public education, of being incredibly important.
Right.
And you don't have that will. You know, so many people opt for maybe private schools. And because the schools are resegregating, you can pretty much separate them into this kid and those kids.
Okay.
And you really have to have a buy-in. And maybe sometimes teachers don't feel that total support from the whole community. You know, people, you know, now you have people thinking that teaching is a cushy job, and why do they need so many, you know, benefits and things like that? And I think they don't feel as supported from the whole community. So you need that buy-in that people say, you know, even in this poor school, the kids, you know, these are going to be the future. These kids are going to be the people you need to hire. So you need that buy-in, and I'm not sure we have, as a country and as a community, that total buy-in that public schools are this great, wonderful thing that this country does to put everybody on an equal level and give everybody the same chance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to actually move on to a topic that's a little more fun, but still necessary, which is food, okay? And I love to eat, as you can see. And look in the audience, you can see my gut, even with the table. But anyway, food. And, you know, I'm going to start out with you because, you know, you do work with Hawthorne's restaurant group, which is one of my favorite restaurant groups. I go to Local Lime all the time and Kickstand and eat there. Now, it wasn't too long ago that Charlotte was sort of thought of as a chain place, a place where you could find chains of every kind and every stripe, and not a lot of independently owned restaurants. And now you have a lot of independently owned restaurants, especially in the last year. You know, you got people like Halcyon and Fern and all these really great restaurants. Some of these people that opened them up were people that left Johnson and Wales and places like that. But you're seeing more of those restaurants now, which is great. The question is, though, are we any closer to sort of being known as a food town and not a chain food town? What do you think? Working directly in the food industry.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things that are happening in Charlotte, and there's a lot of potential that's building up. There's over 5,000 restaurants in Charlotte. Just under half are actually independently owned.
Okay.
They're not chains. So wherever you live in town, and it's a big city, it's really spread out, so there's no high concentrations of anything. But even in the past, 3 years, which is how long I've been in Charlotte, there have been some really interesting places opening up. Okay. If you just walk down Central Avenue, right at Uptown where it ends, and keep going for a couple miles, you're going to find a whole gamut of amazing places. To compare us to another city that has probably one of the best reputations as a food town in the country is Austin. Okay. Exact same size city, population density is the same, and they're really known for their food truck scene, their barbecue scene, everything.
Right.
So we're getting there, and it just takes maybe the right chefs to get into town and just really be committed to it.
Now, Mary, you cook really good. I've eaten your food before. And so, but what do you think about just the restaurant scene?
Well, when I moved here, I thought this is the biggest city in North Carolina, and I was amazed because I didn't think it was that adventurous a restaurant scene. And you actually had the Triangle or Asheville and different areas that are smaller cities that had a more adventurous restaurant scene.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that it was known for business. You know, this was a city known for business and food as fuel. Yeah, just let me get on to the next
power
thing.
lunch
Yeah, give me a steak, which I'm not really, you know. So, but I do think that as a lot of folks moved here and food, you know, you want to recreate those experiences. Also, as it became much more diverse ethnically, that different ethnic groups would bring their tradition and their restaurant scene in there. So you started to see those things pop up.
Okay.
And it made it a much more interesting restaurant scene. And so I really think it is becoming a lot easier to find those different quirky things, those different tastes that you want to have.
Well, I want to ask you a question, because I debate about food all the time. And one of the things I always say is that how many restaurants in Charlotte, and this is not a diss at all, but it's just, you know, it's an idea. How many places can you say that you love to eat? Not that you like, but like you love. Like you could eat there every single day. I mean, do you think there's a large contingent of restaurants that you can actually say that about?
I think there's enough of a critical mass.
Name them all. No,
Yeah, that wasn't.
I did just eat at Fern this past weekend and was
how'd you like it?
big fan. Went with a group, vegetarians and non-vegetarians alike. And the scene itself, when you walk in, it feels very urban. It's got a funky atmosphere, and then the food itself was fantastic.
Okay, well that was a positive take on it. What about you? And I know you work at Hawthorne's. You got some great restaurants. I mean, do you really have a ton of restaurants that you just love to eat at, other than the ones you work at?
I mean, I definitely do. Food is entertainment. I mean, we have to eat, so it's carnal, right? But it's also
but have to and love is two different things.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. But it's entertainment. I mean, you go out to eat, and you never know what the experience is going to be like. You know, what's cool about going out to eat is that you kind of never know what you're going to get, even if it's at your favorite restaurant. They can have an off day, or they can have a really good day, or they can have a special. So it's just something that, you know, if you want to be someone who is a lover of food and who is a real eater, you know, you have to be adventurous.
Right.
I mean, there's so many restaurants that all of us have never been to, and you just got to give them a chance. I mean, it's difficult because, you know, the buy-in for a restaurant as an eater, as a diner, it can vary widely. You can go to one of our new food trucks that we have and spend a few bucks and get something amazing from a really passionate chef, or you can go, you know, to a restaurant uptown and spend hundreds of dollars, you know, with you and a loved one. You know, it's not like going to see a movie where no matter what the movie is, art house or camp, the buy-in's the same. You know, you're paying, you know, $5-10 for a ticket. You know, so but it's just the restaurant scene is the one scene where you can get the most pleasure out of, I think, in town, because there's always something new to experience, even at your favorite spot. Well,
you mentioned food trucks, and I love food trucks. It's a great food trend. I think we're sort of on the tail end of that trend nationally. But we get a lot of trends. Some are better than others. Like right now, we're really in a frozen yogurt type thing. And then the sushi was a little while ago, and steak. Do you see a day where we will start food trends? I mean, is that day coming soon? It's a messianic question.
Yeah, I mean, to invent a trend or to invent a food is one thing, but to invent like a dissemination of food. I mean, food truck isn't a food. It's a way to get food out there. I don't know if anything is going to be home to Charlotte. I can't really see that. But luckily we do have like Johnson and Wales.
Okay.
And hopefully a lot of those students coming out of that school, they're going to stay here, you know, and they're going to invest in Charlotte. And they're going to become Charlotteans and just lift us all up with deliciousness.
I mean, talking about Johnson & Wales, what role do you think Johnson & Wales has played in the diversification of restaurants that we have right now?
Oh, I think it's a great addition to the city, and folks will come here and they'll want to stay here, and so they'll open up little. I like even little places, you know, a few tables, just a few little things. One thing that you do very well, and I'm looking to see maybe that come out of Johnson and Wales. A lot of, you know, just very specific little trends and little taste and quirks. I mean, I sometimes, you know, I just want to go out if I'm in a certain mood, you know, oh, I want comfort food this night, or Chinese food this night, or something like that. And I think that Charlotte is starting to grow where you can sort of see that and do that. And, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what's next. But I do relax by cooking, so it takes a lot to get me out of the house.
Continue the cooking. This is good. Now here's another kind of big, high concept question. You know, I was having a conversation with creative loafing food critic Trisha Childress, and we had a little conversation about signature dish. You know, a lot of cities have a signature dish. You know, maybe New Orleans has gumbo or beignets or whatever. Charlotte, what is our signature dish? I want to go around and everybody kind of say what you think Charlotte's signature dish is. Mary, you start.
No, start down there.
Okay, Julie, you start.
Oh, brother.
Brother, that's a great one.
I mean, barbecue. I think we are leaders among the state, and we're kind of east.
You think
meets
Charlotte
west.
is the signature of food of Charlotte is barbecue?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
all right.
I think we have some very dedicated barbecue eaters that take their barbecue very seriously.
That's right. Okay.
And I think that's a definite strength.
All
of
right, all
Charlotte.
right. I got you down for that. What do you think? Signature dish.
I think something that's underrated but still very working class and acceptable to everyone is just the burger.
Yes.
I think this is a phenomenal town to find a burger. You know, you can go to your chains. Don't, but but they do it well too. I mean,
Yes.
you can a burger is simple.
Yeah.
You know, and the best food is always the simplest. You know, and there are places that've been around a really long time, and there are new places, independent, that are in Charlotte. I mean, dozens and dozens of places. You can take a burger tour of Charlotte, and it'll last you months.
Good idea. Burger tour. What about you?
Well, you know, I think we're still searching for it in a way. I'd say barbecue is not quite this part of the state, but I think compared to the news that's been happening, we'll be trying to figure out a dish that has to do with bananas now that Chiquita's going to be coming to town.
Okay.
It'll be just in time for the DNC, right?
Okay. All right. Well, that's very interesting. You know, Trisha actually was trying to push the idea of fried chicken.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what is prices? Well, Coffee Cup is gone, but they, you know, and Chicken Box. But is that still around? I don't even know. All right. Well, anyway, that's food. That's the food conversation. And right now we're going to take a listen to Jarvis Holiday with his weekly commentary.
We're all trying to make it. Trying to make it through college, make it from that internship to a full-time position, make it from entry level to management, from employee to small business owner. America's the land of opportunity, and Charlotte's a can-do city. Those of us who are either embarking on or in the midst of careers believe we can do anything, and we'll do anything to make it. I remember a few years ago having a conversation with a friend. I don't recall what we were talking about, but I do remember her profoundly saying, "Fake it till you make it," right? These days, people want to desperately become a success at something that in the process, they want you to believe they're already a success, that they've already made it. They want you to believe that they already have big clients, for example. Because if you believe they do, then they believe you will be more likely to become a client of theirs or want to do business with them. So you had some fancy business cards made. You paid someone to design you a flashy website. Each of those bears your impressive sounding and impressive looking company name and logo. Confident that those things will entice. When you meet people at networking events, you tell them you have a PR or marketing firm, that you own an event planning business, that you're a fashion designer, you run a record label, you're a personal chef or a personal trainer, or any one of a number of career fields you might have chosen. You tell them that you're the CEO. Well, I'm a journalist, and it's in my nature to ask questions, so tell me more. Who are your clients? Might I know anyone you represent? Where can I buy pieces you've designed or your artist's music? Are any of the people you cook for or train celebrities? As Jay-Z said in his song Takeover, we don't believe you. You need more people. Where you would be better served is to try a more honest and humble approach, one that shows you're talented, hardworking, and just in need of your big break. So in conversation at a networking event, Don't be afraid to tell us that your company is a startup or still in the planning stages. Don't be hesitant to state on your business card that you are a sole proprietor. In Charlotte, where you could easily cross paths with an executive from a big bank or Fortune 500 company, owner of a restaurant chain or other franchise, or official from a leading government agency, any of whom you would want to work for or do business with, just know that you don't have to lead them to believe that you're a CEO too, because your business card says so. That executive had to start somewhere himself, and if you have the talents you believe you have, he might feel compelled to want to know more about your startup company. And then you might end up in a position to truly make it without having to fake it.
All right, well, thank you, Jarvis. We are back to the conversation. Now we just talked about food a little while ago. That was fun. Now for a kind of serious topic, a guy who's really making a lot of news and not necessarily good news is Harold Cogdell, county commissioner. Last week, he made a lot of news because he successfully ousted Jennifer Roberts for the chair of the county commission. Now, this actually was his second try. He tried to do it before, and now he did it successfully. In order to do it, he teamed up with Republicans, and he's a Democrat, let me just add that. He teamed up with Republicans like Bill James, who is so loved around the city, and which in this move kind of put him out of sorts with both Democrats on the commission, his fellow Democrats, and also with people that voted for him. And a lot of people kind of wondering, who is Harold Cogdell? And so I want to ask you guys that question. I want to start with you, Mary. Who is Harold? Who is the guy? I'm confused now. I think everybody else is too.
Well, right now, I think Harold Cogdell is the person who's thinking, be careful, what you wish for, because you may get it. Because, he is in charge of the county commission, and he did Jennifer Roberts had said she was not going to run again. And traditionally, the person who gets the most votes is chosen as the chair, and Jennifer Roberts got the most votes. But he's in charge now, and right after he's in charge, he is under scrutiny for some work he did for C.W. Williams, Community Health Center. And before that, before he worked for them, he had encouraged the county commission to give it a little more money.
Yes.
And he's saying, I want it investigated. But he's seeing when you make new friends and you make some enemies that who has your back?
Right, exactly.
And so I think right now he's in charge, and we'll see what happens. But I do think that there are going to be some hard feelings. We saw in the last election that this is a Democratic city.
Right.
Look at the city council, look at the mayor's race. And people do have memories. And so right now, will they remember this? Will the people who voted for him make him pay for this? Now, he says it's because he wants to be a nonpartisan figure. He wants to be the bridge and be the gap between the Democrats and the Republicans. Time will tell what happens.
Right. Now, Matthew, you're a political junkie. Cogdell is a guy who says he's an independent thinker. And then you have people like Parks Helms who says he's kind of a selfish guy, just in it for his own interests. Who is Harold Cogdell for you?
Well, I mean, he's playing a political game. He wanted more power. He thinks that he can help the city. I mean, that's what you have to assume. That's why he's in the game.
Right.
In the Observer article I read about this, Bill James was quoted as saying he was the least dogmatic of all of the Democrats on the commission. Irony aside, what does that mean about Cogdell? That either means he is sort of like a bipartisan guy, he is the bridge, or he doesn't have a backbone.
Or he's kind of bloodthirsty because, like I said before, this is his second time doing it. Jennifer was going to leave anyway. Couldn't he have just waited? I mean, why make such a big move, kind of a dirty move?
Well, I don't know how it's dirty. I mean, it is politics, and it is about power, and it is showing a commitment to the city. But Roberts, phenomenal person. She's leaving. She has to pursue other things. But
why not just wait? And just,
maybe. I would assume that he has a vision.
Okay, all right. Julie, what do you think? Who is Harold Cogdell for you? Now, the commission has a lot to do with schools and funding and all that stuff. So, what is your opinion about who he is?
Absolutely. I agree that there are a lot of question marks. What are the motives behind this move? Is his true desire to be a connector and a bridge builder? And I think this situation is interesting to watch as the CMS Board of Education, the new board plays out with 2 new members and 1 more to be appointed, and the new chair and vice chair to be elected in the next board meeting. So I think it's interesting for all community members to be watching as both play out.
Right. Now, not only is he being investigated, like you're saying about C.W. Williams, but he actually at one point left his law firm. He closed his law firm down to take on a position with, I think it was a Boys and Girls Club or Big Brothers. I'm not sure. Let me just make sure I got all those facts right. But he left, and then that didn't work out. And he left the position after only holding it for a month. So it kind of makes you wonder about, is this guy just not thinking? And how smart are these moves? It's not even so much who is the guy, but is he making smart decisions? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the chair is going to take more of his time, and he is the lawyer, and that's how he, that's what he does as well. And if Jennifer Roberts, whatever you thought of her politics, she was a lot of places.
Right.
She sort of made it the equivalent of a full-time
She turned it into a full-time job, right.
And if you're going to take it on, you're going to have to be willing to do all this and to look after the needs of your constituents and the folks who elected you. So this does seem like a lot that he has taken on, particularly given that background where he has given up things in the past because they took up so much time.
Right.
So, it does, I think he has to prove that to people, that he is up to the demands of the job. And, as you say, we will see what happens. How does he perform? And he has set himself up because of this. And I think the only thing that he has to be thinking now is, because of the circumstances of his being elected as chair, there'll be even more scrutiny on him.
Right. And
more demands, and people who are wanting him to do well, and then other people who are going to be critical.
Right.
So he has put a lot of pressure on himself.
Well, he's called for this investigation or fact-finding something into his involvement with the C.W. Williams. Another thing I just kind of want to know on the tail end of that is, what kind of future do you think he has outside of working with the county commission? I mean, can he go on if he ever wanted to run for mayor? Do you think that he would have the support to be able to do something like that?
I can see that happening. He did serve a brief stint on city council.
Right.
About 10 years ago. He had to pull back from that because of professional
Are we
obligations.
seeing a pattern of pulling back?
I'm sure he's very dedicated at this point.
Yeah.
Because he has to be.
Yeah, he has to be now. So, I mean, only time will tell, and we will see what happens. I wish him the best. But, okay, to wrap things up, I want to go around the table, and I actually want to ask you all your opinion about what you felt was the #1 under or unreported story of last week. And we'll start with you, Julie, and we'll come on down to Mary.
You started with me last time.
Okay, you know what? I did, actually.
So, start in the middle.
Yeah. Let's start in the middle.
Start in the middle.
Let's start in the middle.
What do you think?
What was the #1 reported?
Underreported or unreported?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think Mary.
Or maybe putting people on the spot.
Yeah, maybe. You didn't tell us this.
Yeah, you sprung this on this.
They sprung this on me. They said,
how about
what do you think?
The
Carlton?
debut.
You said the debut of 282.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
That's
it's
a
the
good
hottest
one.
thing happening.
Well, you know what? I actually wrote a piece last week for a website, QCityMetro.com, and it was called Acting While Black. And it was about how hard it is as a black actor to kind of make it in the business. And it said in the story that most actors don't get paid, for doing local theater. They don't get paid at all. And I think that kind of sucks. I mean, if you're doing some work, you would think somebody would give you some money, especially for that, all the rehearsal. So I thought that was kind of buried in the story, you know?
That's the term starving artist.
It's really starving.
Really,
Yeah.
literally starving. They won't be able to go to all those restaurants.
Now, Julie, did you think of anything yet?
Well, I think one topic that was just covered this morning in the Observer is the CMS school board, and I think issues around the school board are of particular importance right now and over the next few months, because candidates for the CMS superintendency, those who are looking to say, would I want that job, whether they're internal or external, are looking at how these school board members, their potential future colleagues and
Right.
supervisors, how they behave, how they feel about the issues, what sort of path they think CMS should go down from here.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mary, you actually write about a lot of national stuff that affects us. You write about the DNC a lot. Is there anything that's happening in the DNC planning that maybe folks haven't heard about? I know they named a housing provider.
They named a housing provider, and also, I know young people, if you're looking at this, the end of this week is a deadline for interns.
Oh, wow.
You can be an intern if you're from a Charlotte area school, college, university, graduate school.
Not high school.
No, not
Okay,
high school. Right. And sometimes you can get credit for it. And I talked to a few of them, and it's a great opportunity to work in every area from communications to operations. And you can go to your career center at your colleges. And I think that is going to be a great story, too. The DNC, how it's going to really take over the city, and how, this week they opened the credentialing for the national media.
Okay. And
people are going to be coming in, and they want to know more about the city.
Well, so thank you very much, Julie Schaefer, Matthew Vincent, and Mary Curtis. Thank you a lot for joining us on 282. And thank you for watching 282. Come back, and like I said, if you have any comments, please go to Twitter and hit us up at 282 TV. I'm Carlton Hargrove, and this is 282.